Trader.com's Daily Brief. The answer to your question is learn the goddamn process, trade your trading plans, don't take too much risk on any one trade, and just let yourself get rich. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to the Frivolity. Here we are, Friday. It's September. Sorry, I had a little itchy ear there. 1st of September. Look at that. 09/01/2023. And the year sure flew by, eh? Last month, I guess, of Q3. And we'll go into Q4, which is always exciting. And of course, and actually, I did see a lot of people were making reference to the fact that online that it seems to become quite popular. Refrain. September is a horrible month in the stock market usually. Oh boy, great. So be forewarned. And actually it was interesting, as you can see off of the dashboard. Look who just flashed a negative signal. Uh-oh, SpaghettiOs. Hello, Gilts. Nice to see you. I got a few people watching the YouTube page. I don't know whether we'll have that big of an audience today or not, but what the hell, let's try our best. So what the heck's going on here? Did notice late yesterday, and Julian's at the wheel, the helm, on Thursday, so I was kind of MIA yesterday, but I did notice coming into the latter part of yesterday that, oh boy, did the market ever come off smartly there into the close. So I have a feeling people were kind of maybe getting ready for some sort of negative September here. Into the close yesterday, Dow was off good 100, well, it was 168 points, about 0.5%. See, NASDAQ went and emmed out there right into the close. That was a nasty fail. S&P 500 almost basically finished on its lows. And of course, the Russell 2000 just lower highs and lower lows defines a bear. So it wouldn't surprise me that things are a bit weak here today. And of course, as we had said, we have actually flashed a sell here on the S&P, the breadth. And I would show you, but there are other measures that we follow that are behind the paywall. That we would encourage you to maybe consider subscribing to TRI, our dashboard indicator service, to tell you about getting some negative signals across the board here. And it was actually interesting. The first thing this morning, I was up very, very early this morning. And first thing this morning, did notice that things were trying to perk up. It was almost kind of like it was a buy the rumor, sell the news. But in a weird sort of way, the Econs were so thick this morning. We had just a ton of them coming out here today. You can see the fireworks began at 5:30 my time. We have a whole bunch of Canadian data that came out here. And I think it's official. Canada's a short. I think I've told you that now for basically the past 2 or 3 years. And unfortunately, Canada will be a short. Let's hope to God Canada doesn't go the same direction as other commodity countries. I mean, Russia is just an absolute shit show. And that's that leader over there. What a jerk. I thought we had put all that kind of civilization behind us, but anyway, these commodity countries, it's just an absolute train wreck. So I mean, we'll see how it goes. I do find it fascinating that I'm seeing more and more and more talk. In fact, that Robert Kennedy, he's even come out now and said publicly how if he was president, there's no bloody way there's going to be any centralized digital currencies, because and then pointed his finger right at substitute drama teachers and said, this is the danger of these centralized currencies where substitute drama teachers can just decide that you're not allowed to have any money and just kill your bank account, which if anything Brilliant. Perfect. Because this is what we have to be very afraid of in this 21st century, especially with, people like Bill Gates and stuff and Allen and stuff deciding what's right and wrong in this world, with all this, Uber technology, superpowers. It's very, very dangerous world we live in. So, if anything, I'd almost like to see the pendulum go swinging back the other direction, and maybe we put the power back in the people's hands and that kind of stuff. So, doesn't surprise me seeing the data coming out of my country, as I've said. And the worst part about this is we go through these 20-year cycles. We teach this very clearly in our education program. In fact, I believe that the cycles are 17 and a half years in duration. And unfortunately, when the prevailing trend continues on past that 17 and a half year cycle window, that's what creates what's called imbalances. And it's the imbalances that actually destroy things, because they create bubbles that are just unsustainable. And of course, the economic headwinds, what was prevailing in the previous 20 years to cause the dramatic expansion in the commodity countries, that fear cycle running into hard assets, that cycle's over. And if anything, I think we got a pretty good dose of that today, in that a lot of econs here are now suggesting that, kind of the inflation problem that really was just got ridiculously out of hand there. It looks like they put it back in the box. Like I said, we're actually now starting to get like GDP growth rates negative prints here in my country. And then if we scroll down to the States, we still have the manufacturing data that came out today here. You notice these numbers are all very comfortably under 50. Under 50 implies economic contraction, not expansion. So you can see right across the board, the economies are contracting, which is exactly what Mr. Greenspan, or Mr. Green, geez, you can tell I'm an old timer, eh? Mr. Pow, Chip Pow. I don't know whether Mr. Greenspan. I think Greenspan's still alive. It's remarkable how old these bankster dudes live. Well, the guy who was in charge of the Fed back in 1980, he actually just died just probably like 5 years ago. So Volcker, anyway. So what I think's happening here, and it's an interesting side, because non-farm payrolls numbers actually came in a little stronger than expected. But at the same time, too, previous months' data prints were actually revised lower. So because and keep in mind, this always happens with non-farm payrolls. And in fact, a lot of traders that I've worked with over the years say, do not trust this data. It's highly political and it's always subject to massive revisions down the road. So, like last month, we're like, oh my God, look at all these jobs. Oh, Biden's so wonderful. And it turns out this month they take half of those jobs back, and you find out like that. Oh, so wonderful, right? That's page one, and the front page of the newspaper, and the CNBC. That's all they talk about for 5 hours straight, and then very quietly, a month or two later, they say, "Well, actually, we only created about half as many jobs as we thought." But that was a revision to previous data that was incorrect. Blah blah blah. It drives you crazy how corrupt this world is. So take it with a grain of salt. I think probably the most important thing here is let's go see how the market reacted to all this. And just on first blush, I always like to look at this as sort of a market matrix. You can see that U.S. dollar actually initially the knee jerk, especially on the jobs data, it didn't really have a lot of like inflationary sort of warnings there. And so I think they got the impression that, well, unemployment rates ticking up. So maybe that means the North American economy is weaker. But then he actually dug into the data and actually, is fairly robust from sort of an inflation perspective, meaning that the Fed just can't lower rates. There's just too much underlying strength, especially in the jobs market, that suggests that they just can't lower rates. So like average hourly earnings still sitting up here well above 4%. This is a huge component of sort of PCE core numbers. Remember yesterday the PCE number came out and it was still fairly sticky. It's still up in this 4.5% area. So there's no way the Fed can lower rates, and as a result, the U.S. dollar and the U.S. dollar index itself just going bananas to the upside. It is interesting. In the same note, we showed you the Canadian data, and of course, I think that Canada is a short. This is, whether you actually make money from trading off of this, it's actually a very pretty M top. You could have shorted that nicely. But, the data coming out of Canada right now should actually start to catch up. Either one of two things are going to happen here in Canada. Either, and, people in the public are calling Canada basically a banana republic now. But one of two things should happen. Either A, Canada gets its fiscal act together and substitute drama teachers are told to go sit in the corner and let the adults take over. Which would mean a massive reduction in government spending, which means the economy should go into recession, which means the housing prices should absolutely collapse. I mean, if you want to, and what's fascinating is I've been barking about this for 4 or 5 years, but now you go on like social media and it's everywhere, where it's really obvious the annual income of the typical Canadian is like a fraction of what it actually takes to just afford a home. In fact, I won't show you the management discussion, but what I will say is the boys were kind of poking fun of me at what a shit show this. Let's see if I can even do this. What a shit show this country is. How much does it cost to live in Canada? So you want kind of a fun breakdown. I mean, it's terrible. It's absolutely horrific what these people have done. And the simple solution here is that the house prices have to basically probably fall in half. And, if they did fall in half, then prices would come back down into sort of median income ranges and, just be business as usual. So that's scenario one. I'll throw that in the lounge just so you have it, and just in case you care, anybody, site members who are watching this. Scenario two, which is a bit scarier, but scenario two is substitute drama teachers decide that the solution to the problem is just to print more money and more government spending, which is going to cause more inflation. And if that's the case, then this is where the marketplace is going to decide our fate, and the Canadian currency should absolutely collapse here. Hey, there's fun. And I've sort of talked to you guys about this. I mean, the irony of it all is that through this period when oil prices were very, very strong, right? This is the meat and potatoes of that last fear cycle. They actually bid the commodity prices up into the first part of the cycle. Remember, this is Junior Bush. This is the 2008 building the economies out for the 2008 Olympics, right? There's the 2008 Olympics right there. Build China's economy out and all that bullshit, right? And this was, $100 plus oil price before they went and like printed a shitload of money and completely, diluted the purchasing power of all of us. So energy prices come off. We're coming out of that last cycle, and anybody that works with me should see this chart and go, gee whiz, that looks like a bearish spot, and you can see the price objective here. So like I said, either one of two scenarios happens. Either this market corrects naturally and healthfully and things like housing and food prices and energy costs and stuff all naturally come down to earth. But of course, this stupid substitute drama teacher is actually carrying out Klaus's Great Reset, which is a function of the banksters, and all they want to do is they just want to add another zero onto the end of everybody's price tag, and then they can just continue their bullshit of deficit spending and just diluting the crap out of the currency's value. So there's your scenario, and when I listen to the market's message, that's actually the message that I see. And it's fascinating because I think to a certain degree, the banksters who are running things like the United States Federal Reserve, it is the hegemony currency. It's interesting that down in the States, they're actually trying, trying is the operative word. They're trying to sort of get control of the money supply. But in my country, I don't know. So as I said, there's either two scenarios here for Canada, and it's kind of depressing because it's a no-win situation in either scenario. As I said, Canada is a short, and it remains a short for probably the next 15, 20 years. Do yourself a favor if you're thinking about relocating in the world, don't consider Canada. This is not a good alternative, which is a shame because it's a beautiful country, and the citizens, the previous citizens before what they've done to this. I saw an article yesterday where they actually said that Statistics Canada has actually underreported the population. When I was probably your people's age, well, I don't know, when I was in my 20s and 30s, Canada's population was like 30 some odd million. Now it's over 40 million, and I'm not quite sure what all these people are going to do for jobs when they come here. There is no industry here. Remember, Canada is a commodity country. And then they just announced, somebody just said the other day, well, there's a gentleman actually, there was the bank CIBC bank analyst. So, I mean, this is a pretty important guy. She came out and said that actually it turns out Statistics Canada is underreporting the population by like millions. So yeah, this it's just an absolute shit show here. So do yourself a favor. I mean, the irony of it all is that actually I'm a US dollar bull. And as I had sort of pointed out to you guys, US dollar is actually doing relatively okay in here today. And I would be a bit concerned if I was, somebody who's taken out a lot of loans and stuff in Canada right now. Oh boy, this looks dangerous. But anyway, enough ranting. So Econs coming out. Econs showing that relatively economy is still growing. Looks the job market down the states looks pretty good. I don't think the inflation problem's out of control, but at the same time too, don't think there's any cause for lowering rates. So demonstrator of best practices. Because we had non-farm payrolls out first thing this morning. Actually, a lot of traders, when I used to trade in prop trading land, we actually would just say, what, let's just leave this alone until all this data came out. And there was a ton of them. There was like every half hour, it was like they were hitting us with a big whack of econs. So the headlines, of course, U.S. economy adds more jobs than expected. And interestingly enough, the unemployment rate ticked up. Like we said, lots of revisions to previous data. With starting the day off, we see that Japan actually was up about 0.25%. Chinese market stabilizing. They've tried to do a bunch of measures to stabilize the situation. You don't hear too much about the flood, so maybe that's all that's receding now. Also, too, their biggest real estate developer, Evergrande, and then the second largest one that's called Country Garden or something like that. They've now actually gone and declared bankruptcy and actually spilled the beans of how bad really is. So you might find actually there's a bit of a reprieve there, but who knows? We'll see how that goes. So headline here now: U.S. stocks pair gains. The headline first thing this morning was stocks were booming higher, but you can see that kind of evaporated. And I will say there was a couple interesting setups here this morning, but because there was so many econs and it was so wild and distributed all over the map, I didn't feel comfortable about really taking anything here this morning. You can see, if anything, we call this a megaphone. in the marketplace. This is my 4-hour chart. So you can see we go boom, boom, boom. And unfortunately, we're probably going to go boom, boom, boom. Right. So megaphone's very dangerous. If you are a sharpshooter, you know, it was interesting. We came up into a 4-hour level. That was a valid trade location for me. When we zoom in on that, thank you, sir. If we zoom in on this price action, you can even see that I had denoted. I think that's the word I'm looking for. There's that circle that I just drew on the 4-hour chart. So you can just, so you can see where it is I'm talking about. We had all the econs all come out here, and actually the market was getting ready to continue its march higher. That was that 4-hour level that I was talking about a moment ago. And then, I follow what I want to see is trade location, as you saw from that 4-hour chart. We had trade location. Then I want to see indicator confirmation. You can see we had a whole bunch of divs all start to paint up at top here. And then I want price structure. And you can see I even denoted exactly where the top came in, this empire candle here. And I was humming it on about taking it. The problem is that, I have a strict rule of risk. So I'm allowed to risk 12 ticks on the trade. You can see the empire came in all the way down here, or basically 22 ticks, too much. And really, I like to try and put on 2 contracts. So I can risk 24 ticks, which is about, on the big contract, or I guess on the medium-sized contract, it was about $300 risk at 12 ticks, 2 contracts. Interesting how they, in a couple candles, I was watching this, and I personally have a very hard time hitting that when it's just racing all the way up there and it looks like it's about to break through. Man, I have a really hard time hitting that. Me, if I was gonna do the trade, I just want to have a nice polite M come in up top here and then hit that, or maybe even like a nice inside bar if I can get that kind of price action. That's terrible drawing, I know. If I can get that kind of price action, and this is like 12 ticks, inside bar or an M top, that's 12. When it's an empire like this, it's very difficult for me to take that trade. So unfortunately, I was frozen out of it. But you can clearly see, I mean, that was the trade. Boom. And what I found fascinating is, and I'm not sure how I'm going to do this, but I would like to just show you what happened on Bitcoin, but I don't want to spill the beans here on our algos and stuff. So here, why don't we, well, there you go. The beans are spilled. So we actually had an algo sell signal come in overnight. And it was interesting because as we were getting ready for those econs released, a little W came in. And I'm like, oh, Jesus, algo says short. But then this says buy. What am I going to do? What am I going to do? I paper traded the double bottom. And of course, if anything, I was super happy when I got blown out because the algo was proved right. So that's always a good sign. So looks like the algo's on the right side of the market. And this is an interesting level. This is over on Stamp. We've talked a little bit about candle body lows for trade location, reload zones. But the fact that we did trade lower highs and lower lows here, we took out this low here. There's no way I'm going to get a buy signal anywhere even remotely close to this. If anything, I have to wait for divs to start to form, then I have to wait for Ws. But you can see the moving averages, everything's just pointing down. And if we look at the weekly chart, oh boy, that looks nasty. Is that basically going to turn into a shooting star? Now, it's Friday, so this is a weekly chart. Who knows what this looks like by the end of the week? But the fact that algos are not happy, and algos are not happy right across the board. So it's not really like it's just crypto. It's the stock market too. The algo rolled over here in the stock market. So it's, it's September shaping up for a pretty typical September. Get ready, folks. Suppose the only thing I'll leave off with here this morning for you is, if you're kind of watching all this going, Jesus, how the hell do you make head or tail out of all this? The whole point of the education program that we put together, of course, is to try and teach you a framework so you can frame your behavior and you can come to the market and take appropriate risk and understand what is a good looking trade versus maybe a questionable trade idea. And then, of course, all the tools to track whether you can follow your plan, whether you can get a hold of your emotions and set yourself up for success. That program starts in a little bit over a week, and I would highly encourage you, if you can, to pop on over and at the very least, just enter our raffle, right? I'm not shilling you to buy the course, but of course, while you're here, if you don't win the raffle, maybe it's an idea to pony up a couple bucks and join our education program this fall, because unfortunately, they don't call it the fall for nothing. And as I'd sort of pointed out on social media, we are now into the 6 months prior to the halvening event on Bitcoin. I know some people are a little critical of me of using the COVID dump fractal to illustrate what's likely to happen here over the next 6 months. But what I would just simply say is we all know, and if you've taken the education program, you know for certain, that we're not allowed to buy up markets here. We're not allowed to chase. If anything, what you have to do is you have to wait for the market to come back down into reload zones, come back down against bottom ends or ranges. And then, when sadly, of course, when the public, of course, is not interested and the news is really negative, that's probably when you should probably get interested in this stuff. So this next 6 months should be pretty choppy in the corn here. So just be foreign. Now, I did a dovetail tweet to this because, like I said, a lot of people were pretty upset at this image. I still think that this is basically what's going to happen. You can see how last cycle we had a big run up, then we had a pullback right against the lows, and we had a sizable run up. If we use the 2015 fractal, you notice that in August, we actually were basically against the lows ends of the range, which we're not right now, right? We're kind of up in here right now. So regardless, I'm looking for that pullback into reload zones before we actually set the base for the coming rally. So does it look like the 2021 bottom? Does it look like the 15 bottom? I don't know. But what I will say is that the most important thing over the next 6 months is you just got to get everything all ready. Because once we get on the other side of that happening event, and this move was so big and so dramatic, you can't even see it on the screen. This thing went all the way up to 20 G's. If I actually, shrunk price down, you wouldn't even see the action here. The high was so high. But you can see following the happening event, if you don't have your plan in place, if you're not ready to rock and roll, this market will just take off and leave you behind. And I thought it was really cool that one of our OGs, well, actually, I'm thinking about maybe I'll pop on over and maybe hook up with him. Colin basically reiterated the same message that actually I think he said it really well here. When I was on their show previously, we talked about this period, this 6 months prior to the happening event, as being the washing machine, where it's basically going to try and wash out all the weak bulls, all the weak bears. It's going to try and flush all of you out before we get ready for the next big bull run. And I thought that was fascinating, that basically this is playing out pretty much as we expected. And of course, like I said, we got September coming up, which is a bit of a problem. So if you can, maybe consider joining our education program. You got about a week or so. Hell, see if you can join the raffle and see if you can maybe win the raffle. That'd be kind of cool. And I am going to try, if I can, over the next little bit to see whether I can hook up with Colin and see whether we can get them. Maybe we'll do another broadcast with them. Also, too, I suggested I do a show on Wednesdays with the good people over at Coinigy. And maybe I can convince Colin to come on that Coinigy show, and all of us can chit chat a little bit. And maybe over the coming weeks, we'll have Colin pop on a Friday show here and be our guest speaker on Fridays. And speaking of which, if I'm not mistaken, Chris, did you kick your buddy awake? I don't know whether you can hear Chris talk or not on these videos. Good heavens, what the hell is Cotter posting in the lounge?
Yeah, my buddy's awake.
Posting pictures of pictures of pictures. Good
I don't know
heavens.
what's happening here, but yeah, okay.
I'm not quite sure what that's all about, but anyway, never a dull moment around TRI. Oh, and actually, I should mention, if we are going to do one of these boot camps this November, all you OGs, right? And really, I would prefer, and I'm not quite sure why I'm showing that image, but we will have a boot camp meeting coming up here tomorrow, and it was really just a question of, I don't really want anybody who's not done the level 2 program to be in the boot camp, because there's a lot of stuff in the education program that we make reference to the boot camp. But if you are interested, we're going to have another meeting tomorrow to really firm up the numbers. We're only about 1 or 2 people away from having the numbers required to actually do the boot camp. So anybody that's sort of sitting on the fence and you might be interested, please see if you can get yourself on the on the site. We'll have a meeting tomorrow morning. I think, what are we planning on doing? Like around the time that we do the daily brief, Chris? Is that what we're thinking about doing?
That's correct. 9 a.m. Pacific time?
Pacific time. So I guess around noon Eastern time, and I think
Correct.
that's the evening over in Europe. So be sure to be on the site tomorrow morning for that meeting, just so we can firm up numbers. Okay, I think I've said my piece. I didn't actually hear from Chris. Chris, did you say your buddy's going to join us for the after party today?
That's right. I think he just went to go get his coffee, but he should be joining us shortly.
All right. So this gentleman's actually taken the TRI program, and if I understand correctly, he's actually a big fan of options. So should be a fun conversation about options trading in the after party today, and we'll go look at Max Payne and all that kind of fun stuff. And got to tell you, man, that was one hell of a reversal that we saw with all that econ data coming out first thing this morning. Be really interesting to see whether they can actually close the market positive. As it stands right now, they got the Dow up about 30 points. NASDAQ actually is the one that took it the hardest here this morning. And you can see, of course, corn came off here. And the ES is basically just fluttering around the flat line. As I said there, to start off the broadcast, Japan actually finished relatively positive today. So I wouldn't be surprised if we firm up and maybe we close actually similar to these kind of numbers. Maybe we close up just slightly higher on the day. But it is interesting to see, and I suppose we could talk about this in the after party as well. God, I never have enough time with these videos. But, Allen is back below his key reversal fail level, so that's interesting. Somebody in the TRI lounge had pointed out it looked like we have an Adam and an Eve failure set up on NVIDIA. Has Apple actually finished its rally to fill in the gap? I don't think so. It looks like it still has a little bit more to go. But you can see there's a hell of a lot of red across tech land here this morning. And interesting, too, to see things like Microsoft's key reversal bar is still technically working, which I did find fascinating here this morning. So tech's looking a little heavy here today. Not nearly as bullish as we thought, but maybe in the after party we'll go and pick apart some of these charts. All right, we'll see everybody for the broiler chickens on Sunday. And I think we're actually planning on doing the raffle for Sunday. So make darn sure that if you are interested, get your name into that raffle, and see if maybe we can give you a free seat in the school program this coming term. I think, Chris, is there any chance we can have that sign up stuff in the description of the video here today?
Absolutely, should be in there if not already, but absolutely.
All right. So Chris is saying, I don't know whether you guys can hear Chris. But Chris is saying that this information, you should be able to find a link to this page in the video description of this, the video. If you can, we'd love to have you join us this fall. All right. Have yourselves a great day, everybody. PMA for the win. Slow and steady wins the race. Remember what your number one job as a trader is. And of course, don't take no wooden nickels, right? All right. Have yourselves a great day. All the best. We'll see everybody for Broiler Chickens on Sunday. And all everybody say is bye for now.